So, Rick, Kevin McCarthy is now refusing to testify before the January 6th committee. Now, he's quite possibly the most consequential witness in that he was in direct contact with Trump during that day. Now, the Washington Post believes he's covering up Trump's crimes, especially obstruction of an official proceeding. Where do you see all this going, and what game is McCarthy actually playing? Is he betting that he can stall, delay, or wait out the committee? And finally, what do you think that he actually knows? Or you think he's just bullshitting?
No, look, I think he was in touch with Trump that day. There's been a lot of reporting that they were in communication. I'm sure he was, like, at the time, being a sane person going, cut the shit out, Donald. And Trump was basically telling him to fuck off. I think, however, the game he's playing right now is all about holding on to the speakership. Because he knows right now there's if the Republicans take back the House, there will be a overwhelming majority of pure far-right Trump crazy people in the Republican caucus. And he is not their first choice. They'd much rather have a Jim Jordan than a Kevin McCarthy. So the game he's playing right now is try to keep Trump happy, try to keep the crazies happy, hold the line, hope he can like run out the clock and then be speaker when the elections roll up in November. That's my guess on what he's doing. I think the guy knows everything. I think he's got all the receipts. So what's important here is whether the Democrats have some stones and they hold this guy to account, because he knows things. They have the right to ask for them, and it's important that they hold the line on it and press him, because otherwise he's going to play this game in order to hold on to the speakership.
You think that's the only thing? I mean, look, we know.
Oh, I think he's afraid of being killed.
Well, that's probably true too. He's not in a good place right now, not even with Trump. You see, the problem is, and I tried to explain it to Jim Jordan, to Mark Meadows, and the rest of those Republican fools that sat there attacking me at the House Oversight Committee. I know what Kevin McCarthy's doing, and I know what Donald Trump is thinking at the same time. Let's go back for 2 seconds and talk about Kevin McCarthy's own testimony on the floor, when he turned around and he emphatically stated that Donald Trump is responsible for the January 6th insurrection.
Correct.
That was the kiss of death for Donald Trump. You fucking stabbed me in the back, which is really not the back because he did do it, so therefore it's in the front. But you were disloyal, hence my book. You were disloyal, and as a result, you're on the outs. Now, Kevin McCarthy came back. He tried to kiss the ring, to kiss the ass, to do everything that he needed to do in order to get back into the good graces of Donald Trump. And that's extremely, extremely rare. Right now, there's like only 2 or 3 people that I can name that actually got back into Trump's good graces, though he would throw them under the bus in a second. No different than like what he did to me. Why? Because all that he remembers is what goes on inside that head, that you motherfucker, were disloyal to me. I may need you today, so I'm going to placate you and pretend like I forgot about it, but that fucking elephant doesn't forget a goddamn thing.
And it's like, and you've talked about this before. The guy has a certain degree, like just basic fucking cruelty all the time. He loves torturing people. He loves making them beg for their lives. He loves making them, kiss his ass and then pull the rug out when they need him.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. He was cruel to virtually every single person in the Trump organization. Regardless of age, didn't make a difference. Regardless of position, made no difference. Regardless of all the good things that you ended up doing for him, it made no difference. All he can think about is the last thing that went through his head. I mean, I remember there was a guy who happens to still be there, Alan Garten, in front of the entire company. In front of the entire company. He was going through a divorce, and he had moved out to an apartment while the wife with the children had the house. And, and he was giving away Samsung televisions because they had gotten a whole bunch of them for the hotel, whether it was in Chicago or somewhere else, maybe Soho. So he turns around, and of course they all lied, and he says, this person just won, because it was like a raffle. This person just won exactly what he needed. He's going through a tough time. His wife threw him out like a dog, which isn't true, right? He goes, he probably has nothing there. It's a 72-inch Samsung high-definition television, and he calls up Alan Garten in front of the entire company, which was downstairs for the Christmas party. Merry fucking Christmas, asshole. And yet, this guy fights for him tooth and nail, even to this day, as general counsel. That's
unbelievable. Donald. Yeah, no, it's what we've seen. And look, it's like everybody that worked in the White House got abused and treated like shit, and they would come and go, and they always knew that they had to keep the ass kissing running 24/7, or they were going to be the one that was quote unquote disloyal or in the shitter that day. It's just like that 70 million Americans voted for a guy that they saw do that all the time. Still blows my damn mind.
Yeah, and it should blow your mind. But yet, there's testimony, and this is what bothers me about this January 6th committee and so on. And I talked about this on recent podcasts that I have done. I talked about it on television. They have already spoken with over 300 people regarding the January 6th insurrection. Mm-hmm. Now, I know because I was in front of Congress about 10 times. Each and every time that I was there, they kept me for a minimum of 9 hours. Minimum of 9 hours. One of them went 11 hours. But for the average, it was 9 hours. That's 2,700 hours. Divided by 24 hours in a day, it's 112 and a half days of testimony, straight testimony from people. And you're telling me that you only get this guy Rhodes, this fucking jerk off from the, from what are they, the Oath Keepers? All that you get is a bunch of these low-level assholes that ended up telling the committee that they actually went there because Trump told them to do it, right?
That's the thing that worries me, Michael, about the committee and about the DOJ. Right now, and look, Stuart Rhodes from Oath Keepers, that was the biggest thing they've gotten so far in all this fucking time. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is a conspiracy, and it's sedition, but most of it's handled out in broad fucking daylight. I mean, and the hesitation to start going up the chain to Roger Stone and to Ali Alexander and to Alex Jones and to Mark Meadows and all these people who were in the thick of this fucking conspiracy, it makes me very hesitant to get all optimistic that we're going to see some justice here.
Yeah, well, you have every right to feel that way. I mean, and there was so much testimony given to that January 6th committee about the shouting match that went on between Trump and McCarthy. And it's not one person that's making the allegation. It was multiple people. Multiple people made the allegation that McCarthy said, you got to call it off. Multiple people said that Ivanka turned around and told Daddy, right? Daddy, you have to stop this. Multiple people, including with text messages and so on, between Don Jr. and Mark Meadows and others, indicates that they told him to stop, that you got to get out there, you have to stop this. It's going too far. And I can tell you, as I have on this podcast from day number one on January 6th when it was happening, I turned around and I told you that Donald fucking Trump was sitting in a room, watching it on television and enjoying with the greatest of pride that these idiots are out there wearing MAGA gear, carrying Trump 2020 flags, carrying Trump flags. He's counting the number of red hats that are out there, and he is elated at what they are doing because they're doing it in his name, in his honor. And that's a sick human being.
On January 6th last year, Tara and I went live on LPTV for Lincoln Project, and I talked through this thing, and I said, I've been an anthropologist of Donald Trump. I've studied him more than a lot of people will ever, would ever want to. And I promise you, he loves this. He loves this. He loves the fact that they're beating up the cops. He loves the fact that it's gone crazy. He thinks it's great television. He loves it. This is like spank bank material for this guy. He thinks this is amazing. And that's part of the spectacle of like violence that the Oath Keepers, the Boogaloos, and the Proud Boys, all these other assholes thought was going to change the day. And we're just really lucky that no member of Congress got killed by a mob, because I think Trump would still be in office if they had. Honest answer. I think they're such a bunch of chicken shits that they would have basically said, I don't want to cross this guy. And that's what
when I was watching Rick the other day, Rhodes, what's his name? David Rhodes, talking about, and his lawyer who got up there, and stuttering away, trying to come up with an answer that really didn't make him look stupider than what he really is. All I kept thinking of is March 29th of 1951, when Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were charged with espionage. Now, I get it, and 100%. I mean, they stole the plans for an atomic bomb. They were going to sell it to our. Is what David Rhodes, Steve Bannon, others. You know what? Let me ask you this question in a different way.
Sure.
Yesterday, you tweeted, if David Rhodes of the Oath Keepers can be charged with sedition, because I consider sedition to be on par with what the Rosenbergs did, which is, which was espionage. I think it's the same. I think it should carry the same weight. But if Rhodes of the Oath Keeper and Steve can be charged with sedition, so can Steve Bannon. And I'm curious how you view the Justice Department's efforts thus far to bring those responsible for January 6th to justice, and why they have yet to charge any one of Trump's inner circles, much less the former asshole himself.
That's my deepest concern here, Michael, is that Steve Bannon goes on a fucking podcast every day and talks about burning down the government, talks about overthrowing the government, talks about overturning the election. He does it every day. Right now, he's still doing it. I promise you, today on his podcast, a decent fucking attorney could have found something where Steve Bannon called for violence or the overthrow of the government. He does it every fucking day. He was an active participant in this. He's talking about, wait till you see what we have planned for tomorrow. It's going to change everything. This guy knew what he was doing. He was encouraging it. He was helping plan and organize it. He sees himself as a revolutionary figure. And as I like to say, I want the Justice Department to act with a degree of swiftness and clarity so that Steve Bannon can get what he really deserves, which is a wall, a blindfold, and one last cigarette. Because this guy, he's the cancer at the center of this, and he's brilliantly exploited the moment. Trump may have thrown him out and called him Sloppy Steve and everything else, but the minute Bannon was organizing and engineering things for this little coup attempt, he was back on the good list. So we've got a guy here who is so dangerous. And again, you've also got to get to Roger Stone and Ali Alexander and Mark Meadows and all these assholes that were in the middle of this thing, all these fucking people that were at the Willard Hotel in the command center of the coup. I mean, they need to be, I said this yesterday, if Steve Bannon was an Islamic religious leader saying the same kind of shit about overthrowing the government, he'd be in Gitmo. This is a guy who is, they are actively doing this. They are actively planning this. They have not stopped. They're going to keep going until either we stop them or they stop this country.
It's funny because going back, I think it was around March of 2017, give or take, around the time that Trump declared that, travel ban, which he acknowledged to me privately in the Oval Office was not a travel ban. It was really a Muslim ban. And I said to him, you realize how fucked up that is? You can't ban a religion from the United States. Now, you can ban if something's going on, like in Syria, you can ban, individuals from Syria coming into the United States under the guise of national security. I totally get it, and I'm for it. I'm not for open borders.
Of course not. Nobody is.
Nobody is, right? However, when I said that to him, he turned around and he said to me, yeah, I know, Steve, he goes, Bannon and Miller, they really fucked this one up. But don't worry, we'll get it right the next time. Which of course he never got it. Which of course that's not the way government is supposed to. Right. That's not the way that government is supposed to operate. Oh, that's all right. You know, I followed exactly what Bannon and Miller, two fucking white supremacists. Even though Steve Miller is Jewish, he's a self-loathing Jew. His own family won't speak to him because he's fucking deranged. Right, but this was a Muslim ban, and I only thought of that when you turned around and said, "What if he was an imam?" Right? What if he was an imam? Right? All of a sudden,
preaching violent overthrow of the U.S. government.
By the way,
what would happen?
Say the same thing about what was going on January 6th at the Capitol steps. What if it wasn't a group of white men, right, and women standing there? What if it was a group of black and brown? What do you think would have happened? The fucking National Guard would have been called out. The military would have been called out. There would have been bodies all over the Capitol steps.
Yeah, right. Think about this alternate history, right? Think about this counterfactual alternate history. Let's say Biden won or Trump won outright, and Biden contested the election, and 6,000 Black Lives Matter people stormed the Capitol, started beating cops and kicking in the doors. They would have fucking drone striked them. The National Guard would have been there in a hot minute. We would have a stack of dead people, dead protesters. That's what would have happened.
Rick, how many people did you say?
Like 6,000 on the steps.
Yeah, you probably then would have had somewhere in the ballpark of 5,000 to 5,200 dead bodies laying there. He would have called out the National Guard. He would have called out the military. He would have
100%.
He would have told them to start shooting away, right? You know, and he would have actually been successful in making it appear as if though Black Lives Matter was trying to overthrow the government. Right, and his supporters would be flooding his bank account with more money than what they've already done. And that's scary because just as soon as Ted Cruz says something fucking stupid, just as soon as we've already saw this, Rand Paul, when he went after Anthony Fauci, after Dr. Fauci the other day, started, soliciting donations off of his attacks on Dr. Fauci. What they've realized is that Donald Trump and his vitriol creates an opportunity for them to fucking grift off of the American, citizenry. That they're able to go ahead and they're able to raise significant Lauren Boebert every single time she says something fucking stupid, which is virtually every time she opens her mouth. She's fundraising off of it, and these same stupid people keep flooding her bank account with it. Now, I believe that while Trump thinks that this is okay and so on, people like DeSantis and others, right, who are also raising big war chests for 2024, all of a sudden Trump is going to turn around and find he's got a lot of competition out there from the Republican Party. It'll be more than 17 like it was in 2016. And they are going to eviscerate him. Every single question is going to be an attack on his personality. You're going to start to have things revealed to the public that we don't know about, and it's going to be ugly for him. And then he's going to really know what disloyal is.
Well, I think you can see the outline of the battle between DeSantis and Trump already shaping up right now, and frankly, it's going to be a real question because a lot of the like establishment money in DC now they want Trumpism without Trump. So they're going to try to get the guys like DeSantis or Josh Hawley or Tom Cotton into that fight against him. And, I think it's going to be miserable and ugly for him. I still think the base is so loyal to him that I'm really looking forward to the bloodbath personally. I think it's going to be absolutely fucking brutal on all sides. And these guys, it's like a knife fight in a dark room. They're all going to be going after each other, but he's the best and biggest target. But the way they're trying to skate the middle is like, praise Trump enough, hold on to him enough, don't get him pissed off at you publicly, and then hope he dies or goes to jail. That's really their bet. That's their long bet, is that Trump is either in jail or dead or unable to run for whatever reason. But the guy's like herpes. It's like impossible to get rid of him unless you burn it all down.
Yeah, it's crazy. But, which brings me to my next question to you, Rick, because Trump continues to roast and to lambaste Ron DeSantis on the COVID vaccine now in Florida, and whatever else that he can use to, pummel the shit out of this Florida governor. It seems that he views DeSantis as his main rival, and he's using every single opportunity to throw mud at the guy. Now, the question is, if there was a path forward for DeSantis, is he any better a choice than Trump, or is he just another fucking chip off the old MAGA block, another Donald Trump 2.0?
He's Trump. He's Trump with an Ivy League degree. He's Trump with degrees from Yale and Harvard. The guy is, in many ways, I think Trump doesn't like DeSantis because he sees so much of himself in the guy. He's intensely egotistical. He's cruel to his people. He's disloyal to people. You cross him one time and you're always on the fucking list. I mean, the guy is, and he's got a weird personality. And like in person, DeSantis is very off-putting. He's not a warm individual. You don't connect with him. He's always like, you can see the gears running in the guy's brain when you're in the room with him. So, I don't think he's any better than Trump. I think he's in some ways more dangerous because he can, lay back on I've got a degree from Harvard. I've got a law degree from Yale. I'm a normal person. But he still believes in the same kind of shit Trump does. And he's still got the same kind of weird strange mental landscape that Trump does.
But Rick, I'm going to have to disagree with you on something. I agree with you that Ron DeSantis is a really weird fucking guy, whether it's in person, television, and whatnot. Very different than Trump. People will tell you, myself included, I have watched him charm the pants off of people when he's in person. He's incredibly flattering to you. He is incredibly gracious to you until the second you walk out the door. And he's laughing, for example, at the evangelicals. I'll never forget, because I became friendly with a multitude of them. And I turned around and right afterwards, because he sat there, he goes, I want to hear from all of you. You're the important ones in the room. And they're all sitting there, holy shit, Donald Trump says we're important, right? And they're all beginning to beam and glow. And then they're talking about abortion, which they are, fundamentally against. And he's like, I'm against abortion too. And they're sitting there, and now they're like, oh my God, this is our Messiah. And he's astute enough and he's dangerous enough because of his personality disorders to say the right things to your face. Then when we're upstairs, he turns around and he looks at me, he goes, you believe the bullshit that these people fucking believe? They're all scam artists. We had Joel Osteen, came to the office. He's like, you ever see the size of that fucking guy's stadium? He fills it up. These people are throwing, it's like he passes around a box. They fill it up with $500,000 every time he goes on. I mean, this is how Trump is thinking. Everybody's full of shit. Everyone's a con artist. Everyone is trying to grift. You know why? He sees in them what he sees in himself.
Projection.
Of course, it's projection.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, Michael, you're right. I don't think I phrased it very well. Ron DeSantis cannot be. He's not a charming person, one-on-one. He's just not. But I think one thing he has figured out is the Republican base now rewards you for being an asshole all the time. They reward being an asshole all the time. And that helps them move forward on being able to do the fundraising stuff, because his fundraising is all like the Trumpian lines of "let's go Brandon" and all the other bullshit. So, Trump taught them all how to do this in a weird way to appeal to the current Republican Party. He's very good at that, but it is harder, I think, for him to build like interpersonal relationships. The guy doesn't have an inner circle of like people around him who he relies on other than his wife. He doesn't have that ability to like inspire internal loyalty. He may inspire fans, but not necessarily internal loyalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I want to go back to something that we were talking about before, and that's, your comment about the DOJ. You wish that they would, just fucking get on with it, right? We talked about the January 6th committee after 300 hours. Why not now just go ahead and refer this case to Merrick Garland so that maybe he could make a decision whether that they're going to bring charges. They have more than enough evidence. And, we all know that it's slow moving. Let me add one more thing to this question to you. McCarthy, who of course came out originally, said, of course I'm going to cooperate with the January 6th panel. And now all of a sudden he's taking a step back. Now he won't cooperate with the January 6th panel. How is it? First of all, I have two questions for you on that. First, if you are a member of Congress and you're refusing to comply with the chamber to which you are affiliated with, how can he still even be there? I mean, that's the part that bothers me. Their rules don't make any sense. And second, if I was Merrick Garland, if I was the Attorney General of this country right now, rest assured, I'd have McCarthy stripped fucking naked like they do to you when you're going through the system. I've been through it plenty of times, right? You strip his fucking ass naked, you make him stand there, and you turn around and you give him an orange jumpsuit, and you do the same shit that they did to me. Put me into a fucking freezer for 7 hours with the air blowing on the top of your head where it's so fucking cold, you feel like your teeth are gonna fall out. Okay, we're gonna let you out now for about 15 minutes. You changing your mind, moron? No? Okay, back in the freezer for you. That's what they did to me. Why is he any better? He's not better than I am. He's a fucking scumbag.
The privilege of being a member of Congress should not grant you one more iota of protection or courtesy or treatment from the processes of justice. I'm sorry. Being a member of Congress, that means you have been sent to Washington to represent your people. That doesn't give you a special license to defy the law. And he's defying the law. He's defying the committee. And the ironic thing is, if Republicans take over and they subpoena Nancy Pelosi, just as an example, and she doesn't do it, they'll fucking put her in jail. The Democrats cannot get their shit together. They don't understand these people. This isn't a contest of how do you deal with some minor bullshit? This is life or death. They've got to strap up here and really understand that these people are not playing by the rules. And they think they're going to get away with it. They think they're going to run out the clock and get away with it. They have to move faster.
Yeah, they have to move. Forget about
move
faster.
First.
They
right.
have
move
to
first,
move.
then move faster.
I mean, it's incredible. I do have to turn around and say this. I don't know whether it's because of this show, because of all of my television appearances or whatnot, where I constantly attack Merrick Garland for Michael Carvajal, the former head of the Bureau of Prisons, who thankfully resigned at the beginning of this week. But one of the things I will turn around and say is that finally, they are doing what they are required to do. But of course, like government, right to the last fucking second, as we say in prison, door to door on the First Step Act. They're finally now calling people up. They don't have the process yet finished. They've only had 4 years or 4.5 years within which to figure this out, which is probably an afternoon with 2 or 3 people to figure it out.
I guarantee you and I could sit down with a whiteboard and figure out a process that would go faster.
In a half a day. There's no doubt about it. And they made 4.5 years finally, only because of, the way the First Step Act was written. I brought an action against the Bureau of Prisons, against the United States government under the First Step Act that was heard by Judge Codal. And he ended up, and I won't agree or disagree with his decision, despite the fact it was not good for me, where he said that the case does not warrant moving forward with a decision by the judge under the issue of ripeness. That government still had at that time 11 and a half months in order to finish this January 24th date, to get to that January 24th date where it has to be implemented. He may or may not realize how important that decision actually was, because what it said to to government is that come January 24th, if you don't have it done, I know that there's going to be a ton of habeas corpus petitions, and we're going to have to answer it, because the only reason that we can't grant Cohen, despite the fact other federal judges did, like Judge Renee Marie Bum out of New Jersey, she said it's bullshit. Doesn't have to go to the absolute last day. They should have done it already because of your proximity to getting out. Right. Putting all that aside, Judge Codal may or may not understand that his decision was so important in forcing Merrick Garland to get somebody to do what's needed to be done. And this is going to assist more than 20,000 federal inmates of the lowest level classification, meaning there's no crime, there's no violence. Most of it is
no violent risk factors, right?
Correct. And these people, are of no danger to society, and
Sure.
I'm very thankful. I already know a handful of people that they called them up today. They're going in. They're having ankle bracelets removed. They're now off of their home confinements, and they're now on supervised release if they have. I know a couple of guys who are in prison that are now out simply because of this. So I'm thankful for Merrick Garland finally doing something. But for God's sakes, that's one aspect, and that pales in comparison to a seditious act by a group of people trying to overthrow the government on behalf of the Fuhrer.
It still comes back to me, and I think about this almost every day. And the committee got pissed off at me because I had heard from inside the committee from two different people that they were slow rolling. They didn't really want to do this. They thought it was, it wasn't going to really go anywhere, so they shouldn't put it front and center. I said so, and I got yelled at by them. I don't care. I juiced them to get it moving in some way, I guess. But this idea that when people say, "Hey, I'm going to burn your fucking house down," I promise you, I'm going to burn your fucking house down. I got the gas in this hand, Zippo in the other. I'm going to burn your house down. You don't say, "Oh well, I'll just wait until you're about to burn my house down. I'll wait until you've poured the gas all over the front steps. I'll wait until you set the fire." No, when they tell you what they're going to do, you've got to stop them. The DOJ knows these people have not stopped this effort to overthrow the election. They're going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. They need to treat everybody involved like the conspirators they are. And honestly, they need to treat Trump like for the role he played in it, where he was knowledgeable of it. I guarantee you Meadows and those guys were rubbing elbows the night before going, "Wait till you see what we do tomorrow, boss. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. It's going to be great.
100%.
Don't worry.
100%.
You'll love it. It'll be great television, Mr. President." I can hear that guy he's a terrible cocksucker. I mean, he is just like a horrible Meadows. I can see that him greasing Trump up on it. Like, "You're going to love it, Mr. President. You wait. Steve has got a plan and they're going to do this and that." And they should treat him that way. They should at least drag his ass up for questioning. People, when democracies fall, no one realizes it's happening and no one believes it's happening. And when it happens, they're all like, "Well, what the fuck was that? I don't know how that happened." I'll tell you how it happened. It's when you ignore the people that are threatening to burn down your system of government and to overthrow your elections at the whim of the dear leader. If you ignore those people, pretend they don't exist, pretend it's not going to happen, then you're going to get fucked. You're going to lose everything. And this is not business as usual in DC for these guys. They need to understand this is not how the world should end for American democracy. But if they don't hold people accountable and literally put the bad actors in jail, and I don't mean the fucking guy with the horns or the jackass with the Confederate flag, I mean the plotters and the planners and the schemers and the people who sent them on this mission.
Yeah, but understand, it is not Donald alone. It's Don Jr.,
No.
It's Eric Trump, it's Laura Trump, it's Rudy Giuliani. You have there's this Amy Kramer, there's a whole slew, Mark Meadows. There is a whole slew of these individuals that were involved. Every one of these motherfuckers that was sitting there in the Willard Hotel the night before, right?
Yep.
Having this powwow, this insurrection powwow. Each and every one of them, there should be charges brought against them. People don't understand as well. The lawsuit that I brought, and we were successful in finally serving dear old Donald the other day. People don't understand.
Nice.
We got them all now. We have them all. We have Michael Carvajal, DOJ. We have Trump. We have them all. Bill Barr. We got him in his underwear walking down the street.
You got him in his fucking boxers.
Yeah, in his shorts. I can imagine what the fuck that looks like. But putting all that aside, people don't understand that lawsuit is so much more than just Michael Cohen. It is
correct.
I may be the named person, in that action. But this is really about our democracy. And I say this all the time to people, and I wish more people would keep talking about it. What ends up happening, the two ways you destroy a democracy. First, take away people's ability to speak. State-run news, state-run, television, state-run newspapers. Take away people's First Amendment rights. North Korea, right? Number two, what do? You empower the military. You take over the military, or you create your own paramilitary group to take over. That's the two ways to make a democracy into an autocracy. It was done, whether it's in Saudi Arabia, it was done in North Korea, it's done in Russia. Now, if that's what Americans want, these fucking dummies that keep supporting Donald and the sedition, I don't understand why they're even here in this country anymore. And what bothers me is, I was on MSNBC with Alex Wood about 2 weeks ago. Hakeem Jeffries and Ted Lieu, both of them penned a letter asking the OIG at the time, Michael Hurwitz, to provide them with information regarding and to open up an investigation into the unconstitutional remand of me back to prison. And the reason that letter is so relevant, despite the fact that both of them and their offices just let it slide by. They completely just let it go, which to me, I don't understand. But it's so relevant, really for one reason. You have to understand the deviousness of Donald. These were both practice runs, all right?
Absolutely.
The action that they took against me was Donald trying to figure out how far he could rip the Constitution before there's a clashback against him. The second is January 6th insurrection. That was a practice run as well. Take the first violation of the First Amendment, take the paramilitary or empower the military to overthrow the government. That's how you create an autocracy. And Donald desperately wants to be like Xi Jinping. He wants to be desperately like Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un, where he can have military parades down Fifth Avenue. You know why? Because he fucking feels like it. He wakes up one day, wants to be 5 years old again, right? And play with his toys. This time, each one of those toys aren't $12 that you pick up at, Costco or your local store. He wants the real deal.
Yeah, look, I have said this. Two big points to address this, what you just said. One is, I say this all the time, a coup that isn't punished is a training exercise. And that's what they're seeing here. They got away with it. They largely got away with this thing. Only the cannon fodder are getting prosecuted so far, not the ringleaders. And the second thing is your point about him, and I wrote about this in one of my books. This is a guy who loves the idea of missile parades. I'm surprised he didn't have like a special uniform made, like a Generalissimo from South America in the 1950s. He loves the authoritarian trappings, the militaristic trappings. All that stuff it's like that's, I guess, whatever fucked up weird fantasies he has about his strength and his power and his virility and all that are kind of wrapped up in that. But he wanted all those military parades in downtown DC right from the beginning. So this is a guy who he believes those things are rightfully his to use, no matter what the Constitution says, the law says, or a 240-year tradition of American, small d democratic, political acts say.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm curious for a second. The 2022 midterm elections could be, and they are in my estimation, the single most consequential in a generation, in that they could return the GOP to the majority and give these fucking lunatics full run of the asylum. Now, I'm curious what you're thinking about the midterms and how afraid should we all be if the GOP does actually retake the majority? What do you think's the worst thing that could happen?
Well, I think that if the Republicans take back the majority, on day one, you're going to see a very immediate declaration. They're going to impeach Joe Biden, and they're going to impeach Vice President Harris in the House. They're going to start investigations that make Benghazi look like a warm-up act, and they're going to use the full power of the government of the legislative branch of the government to begin investigating and persecuting, every Democrat that they have in their sights. They're going to engage in things that enshrine the big lie of Trump. They're going to pass, or they're going to try to pass at least legislation that does nothing but make Trump happy. They're going to try to do everything they can to stop, any kind of further appointments by Biden to either the courts or to the government. And it is going to turn in, like I said, it's going to be Benghazi on steroids times 100. They're going to investigate and persecute, and that's going to really hurt Biden going into 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in real fear for the future of this country if, in fact, the Republicans end up taking back, because you're right. The first thing they're going to do is go for impeachment. And then who knows what else that they're going to start to do. For sure, Joe Biden becomes a lame duck president. And then and Merrick Garland, all of these investigations, they're going to automatically shut down the January 6th committee. They're going to automatically shut down any investigations, federal, that are going on with Trump. They're going to go ahead. They're going to try to put pressure on the Georgia case, on the D.C., the Pick case, presidential inaugural committee case, the attorney general here in New York, the district attorney case here in New York. They're going to try to shut it all down using political influence. That's the scariest part. But I want to ask you this, all right? Earlier this week, Rolling Stone revealed that 3 billionaire families, right, funded the brain trust behind the big lie and the plan to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Now, much of the money went to the conservative Claremont Institute, which during the Trump years ultimately became a MAGA think tank. First off, if you would please discuss with me and my listeners what you know about the Claremont Institute and their impact on the GOP and the big lie in general. And then finally, what kind of accountability should big money donors who participate in these anti-democratic efforts, right? What accountability should they have and face when it comes to being charged with sedition and other crimes?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, let me handle what Claremont was and what it is. It used to be a center-right think tank about conservative values, economic freedom, individual liberty, all the things that Republicans looked like 15, 20 years ago. During the Trump era, they were infected by a bunch of people who were frankly from that like alt-right white supremacist side of the equation. And then they became a sort of outlet for a lot of conservative money where they could push it to Claremont and basically launder it to these crazy people. And it became a place where the ideas and the people they were promoting were increasingly radical and crazy. And now they are all in on the big lie. They fund a lot of the crazy attorneys that have been litigating against the states on Trump's behalf through that resource, and it has really become a sort of hotbed of MAGA and Trump era craziness. Now, look, when you've got the Scaife and you've got the DeVosses and other major donors who have fully embraced the big lie, it is time for groups on the outside to start pressuring those people and their board members, et cetera, which we've done some at Lincoln Project. Other groups have done it also, to start pressuring them like, is this what you believe? Is this what your family believes? Is this what your employees are going to be happy with you pursuing? And it is something that it's got to be sustained and persistent and driven constantly in order to bring an amount of pressure on these people that will make them stop this behavior. Now, Betsy DeVos is going to do what she's going to do. You can't shame her out of this situation. But there are a lot of other corporate donors who are funding these things too. That they can be shamed, they can be pressured, and it's important, I think, for the broader pro-democracy movement to be up on that all the time.
Well, what about the Bradleys as an example? Can you shame them? Because I think that these
you could probably shame them. The Scaifes, maybe yes, maybe no. But none of these people have ever had the pressure brought on their businesses after they've given these donations. This is why Democrats are fucking terrible at this stuff, Michael. They don't think in a bloodthirsty way about how do you put real pressure on the bad guy. And they should be. They should be dragging Betsy DeVos up in front of that commission. They should be dragging the Mellon or the Bradleys and the Scapes up in front of that commission. They should.
What
drag
about
that
the Mercers?
Yeah. Oh, well, please. The Mercers should be dragged to fucking Gitmo, in my opinion. But that's just me because I'm a tougher guy than that. But they should drag the woman from Publix who helped fund the march that day. They should put them in front of the hot lights, and they should ask them the kind of shitty questions they asked you, and drive home the knowledge of these people, and people will figure it out. You know, last year Toyota said they weren't going to give any more money to the sedition caucus, right? And then they did, and when we went after them, we advertised at around the 20 biggest Toyota dealerships in the country, in those markets, and Toyota caved in about a day because they were afraid that their customers would figure out what they were doing. So look, the DeVosses and the Bradleys and the Scapes and the Mercers, they all have companies. They all have businesses. Now, look, some of them may be maybe wealthy enough to say "fuck you," but no one's ever really brought a consistent pressure campaign against them over time.
And this is something that I spoke to you off air about. I think it's about high time. The Democrats, as an organization, as a group, they just don't do it. So somebody else is going to have to do it. It reminds me very much at the beginning when I created the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, when I would watch on television his multiple rallies, which basically had no one of color in the audience. I used to come in the next day and say, you know, in all fairness, your rallies look like a Klan meeting. So I went out and I created this diversity coalition. Wish I didn't do it. I did. It is what it is. At this point in time, I think it's about time that between the Lincoln Project, the MeidasTouch, you know, the Mycelis boys, Mea Culpa, and a handful of other people, I think it's about time that we start to put on some of these events. Well, I don't know if it'll be in LA, in New York, in Washington. And what we'll do is we'll do very much what the Republicans do with CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee. What we should do like a DPAC, a Democrat, or do a democracy political action committee.
Right. I think that the forces of the pro-democracy forces in this country, and we say this at Lincoln all the time, we'll work with anybody of good faith, right? We're going to work with anybody who also wants to pull the boat in the right direction of freedom and of avoiding this country slipping into authoritarian craziness. So we ought to do that. We ought to have people in a room together. You know, it's like, hey, welcome to my fucking TED Talk, people. And it actually helps build a movement. CPAC, well before Trump, is one of the things that built this cohesive, tight, disciplined conservative movement over 40 years. I mean, shit, I started going to CPAC when I was in college in the 80s. You know, that's how old I am. And so that idea that you would put on something like that, I think it's great. We ought to talk about it. I love it.
I think what we need to do is we need to do what the Republicans do. We're going to set up an account. We'll turn around. We'll start to fundraise. We'll end up bringing people in. We'll have the best speakers. Not like, I was watching television the other day, and Stephanie Grisham came on. And she started talking about how she and 15 other insiders are going to go ahead and they're going to, do some sort of an event. To me, it makes no sense. I'm not interested in listening to somebody who decided to come clean after they put out a book, right? Instead of doing it beforehand.
There's a lot of that going around in D.C. And look, God bless, but, people who have not been on the front line of politics, who basically got into some bureaucratic position where they were around Trump and then they wrote a book about it. And okay, great. Love it. I'm glad you came clean. But, I'm not willing to go out every day and fight to save a Republican Party that looks like Donald Trump's Republican Party. I am willing to go out and fight every day to save the country and save our democracy and get in the fight every day with whatever it takes to very clearly, break off this pattern that's building up on the Trump side of the equation of retaking the government. And so, yeah, I think a lot of the people that are in the DC bubble don't understand. There's no going back to the old GOP. It's over. It's over. It's not going to happen. As my friend Stuart Stevens says, okay, let's say you put 1,000% more good Republicans in the House. That means you'd have 22 votes.
Right. Yeah, it means nothing. But
nothing.
Let me ask you this, Rick. You recently had author Stephen Marsh on your show, The Breakdown.
Yeah.
And he was discussing the not so insane possibility that the United States was headed for a civil war, giving it a 67% chance of occurring. Now, I'm curious because I saw the same statistic being talked about on CNN the other day. Mm-hmm. If you could break down for my listeners his reasoning and what you think will actually happen.
Yeah, look, I think what he's arguing is we are now at a point where both sides have in large measure given up on a democratic solution to the current crisis. Now, the Democrats have given up on the democratic solution because they're afraid. They don't know what to do. They're helpless. They can't believe that people would burn it all down. The Republicans have given up on it because they think it's the easiest way to get power back. That is a recipe for a civil conflict, a recipe for a civil war. We have been in my opinion, a cold civil war for a long time, where the cultures of the left and the right have drifted so far apart that it's impossible to recognize them anymore. And the idea that you've got one side of the political equation that is now willing to embrace violence, willing to embrace lawlessness, willing to embrace the destruction of the country as we knew it. I think that is an incredibly dangerous situation. I think it is a situation that makes it very likely we'll get up into a conflict because none of these people will be punished at the degree they should be for what they did on January 6th. I think the inaction on that makes it almost inevitable we're going to get into a conflict that we will never truly get over.
Yeah, I mean, look back not more than 24 hours ago. David Rhodes, as he stood before the court, they played back a statement that he made about having to adhere to violence and to create a civil war, if necessary, to get their point across. There's no such thing anymore as, look, Rick, you and I, despite the fact that it appears, to at least to the listeners, based on the questions that I'm asking, that we agree on everything. But that's not true.
No, of course
Absolutely we don't. There are things that I may agree, that I may think that you disagree with. There are things you may agree that I disagree. But I am civil. This is a civil conversation, not just because we both believe that our democracy is in peril, but simply because I respect your opinion to the same extent that you respect mine.
Yeah.
Right. That no longer exists in Washington. We are now at a point where Republicans, no matter what they say, Democrats will not go along with it. The same holds true. Whatever the Democrats say, Republicans will fight tooth and nail. They even fought, for God's sakes, when Joe Biden was trying to do the COVID relief package. People were fucking starving, and yet Republicans says, well, Mitch McConnell, well, we can't actually afford this anymore.
There's people are lazy, and they're sitting on their asses all day.
Like gobble, gobble, gobble. You ever see a thing on the bottom of his fucking neck? Like a turkey?
Disgusting.
I mean, good thing that maybe someone should pardon him during Thanksgiving. But my point is, they're going to fight Joe Biden on everything, even though many of the people who would benefit from the relief package are Republicans. So do they really care about their own constituents? And the answer is a blazing fucking no. Just a blazing no.
It's it's a hell of a time we live in right now, Michael, and it is a time where all the old things we used to believe about the two parties, you got to reset every day and just go, nope, that's not how it works anymore. You got to realize that the world that we actually live in. I said this a lot. The failure of imagination by Republicans is what led us to Trump, and we cannot fail to imagine just how bad this can be if we don't all step up to the battle line and fight together.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But you may remember I said to you at the beginning that the hour, goes by really quick.
It did, man. Here we are.
Well, I have two last questions for you.
Okay, go.
And I want to change gears for a moment and talk about one of the things that I love to attack on my Twitter account, that I like to attack on my Instagram account and on this show. And that's pedophile Matt Gaetz. right? His ex-girlfriend, he's such a fucking scumbag, right? His ex-girlfriend recently testified before the grand jury investigating him, and it's likely that he could be indicted imminently. Do you think he resigns if indicted, or is he so shameless? Is he such a fucking wannabe Trump 2.0 that he will continue? He'll continue his barnstorming with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And do you think that the MAGA diehards drop him, or are they also so brainwashed that they'll chalk his arrest up to some sort of a deep state plot by the Democrats?
First off, let me break that one down. He will never resign under any circumstances. He will stay there until they drag him out by the feet, because he believes he can balls it through. He can gut it through. The second thing is the MAGAs will stay with him as long as he keeps doing. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. The MAGAs will stay with him as long as he keeps doing what he's doing, which is putting on a big show. Now, the irony is they see a pedophile under every rug. They think everyone who disagrees with him is a communist pedophile. But Matt Gaetz, who is paying teenage hookers on Venmo, is somehow gets a pass. It's kind of amazing, but he's an example of the new Republican Party. It's all about the stupidity and the big show and all the craziness.
Yeah, well, and then just my last topic that I want is the second most ridiculous thing. I don't know if you saw this one. Michael Avenatti, the disgraced jerk-off, right, has now filed an action not too dissimilar to the one that I filed against the U.S. government, Trump, Bill Barr, and so on, for the unconstitutional remand of me back to prison. The only difference is his complaint, and I just think he's a pathetic motherfucker, right? His is the fact that he claims that he suffered mistreatment while in federal custody, including the fact that allegedly the only thing that these correctional officers would give to him to read while he was there for the 94 days was The Art of the Deal. Now, I'm not sure whether he thinks that they should put him up at the Ritz-Carlton, because, of course, he's so used to using other people's money and lying like a fucking rug. He's part of the opposite side problem. You see, we have Matt Gaetz as a problem, but we have people like Michael Avenatti who are problems too. He attacked me for everything. I met Michael. He attacked me. Yeah. One second, though.
Yeah.
He attacked me for everything. But yet, if you look back now and you do like we used to do in like 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, write out all the things that the guy made claims on, and then put a true and a false box next to it, you will find 9 out of 10 things that he said were absolutely false, especially when it came to me. As I spoke about with Stormy on this program, sure. I never went after Stormy. I didn't know she was in Nevada. I wasn't even working for Trump at the time, right? So, yeah. Then, of course, you remember the very famous picture of the disc inside of an open safe, right? This has all the information. Really, motherfucker? Where's that information, you scumbag? Then paying off Jonathan Fry, the San Francisco IRS agent, and in order to hack these IRS system, the FinCEN system, which is the most coveted and guarded, because that's how you catch money launderers, drug dealers, these terrorists. They go in, they take not only my information, my banking information, which the government could have had on their own, which they already did, all for what, $130,000 check, right? This is the big thing. And Jonathan Fry ends up with probation. After going onto the system, they give it to Ronan Farrow, who goes ahead, and then he ends up writing a story about it. I mean, this guy is such fucking bad news. He goes ahead, he steals money from every single person, including a paraplegic inmate, right, that he lied to, steals Stormy Daniels' money, and now all of a sudden he's suing for $94 million. $94 million, $1 million for each day that he was there.
He is one of those people, and look, I met the guy one time. We met at the Texas Tribune Festival one year, had a drink. He was very charming, he was but it's like a lot of people who are sociopathic. It was clear that the show he put on was not the real show, and what he was really doing was a long grift. And I said at one point he was out there clanking around with big balls, bashing on Trump, and I was like, and he did. He had this swagger on Trump in the beginning, but man, the degree to which his bullshit fell apart is spectacular. Okay, and look, the abusive nature of con artists and of scammers is something I've seen firsthand in my life. And you got to be alert to it, and you got to be mindful of it, and you got to be ready to disconnect from people like that when they show you who they really are.
And you see the difference between Rick, the difference between his complaint, which I believe will fail, versus mine, is his states that it's retaliation for his criticism of Trump by Trump and by Bill Barr. See, the difference,
I don't buy it at this point.
Yeah, neither do I. But the difference is his is based upon what? Once again, his outlandish speculation and his bluster because he desperately needs attention. He's an attention whore, right? Mine is predicated on Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein's decision. It's based upon a document that was given to me. And foolishly,
you're arguing the law. He's arguing the story.
That's right. Perfect way to say it. You see, what happened is I was shocked that they let my lawyer leave when we were there over down at 500 Pearl Street with the document, because that document was crafted specifically for me. And you can't do that. And the very first paragraph...
You can't attainder people in that way, so...
Right, and the very first paragraph was that I'm not allowed to speak to press. I'm not allowed to speak to media. My friends, my family aren't allowed to. I can't do a movie. I can't do any television appearances. I can't publish a book. They knew exactly what they were doing. And when we asked, all we did is ask if we could tamp this down because the book was already with the publisher, with Skyhorse. So if I sign this, I'm going to be in violation right the second that I sign it. And they said, well, do me a favor, wait out in the hallway and we're going to go call our superiors. When in fact they were calling the marshal who already had the papers, comes upstairs, handcuffs and shackles me and puts me through a second torture with more solitary confinement, more freezer bullshit, the whole 9 yards. So you're right. I'm arguing law, and he's arguing another fake story. But Rick, let me thank you as always. We have a lot of stuff to do.
Absolutely, my friend. Delighted to be with you as always. We will let's keep talking about this democracy summit. I really like the idea. And
I'm going to speak to you about it. And together, what we'll do is we're going to promote the living shit out of it, and hopefully all of our various millions of listeners that are out there, will come join us, and we will have an event like never seen before.
I love it. All right. Thanks, guys.
Be well, Rick.
You too. See you soon.